Imagine if your rock collection could pay the rent and grant eternal life. Welcome to the wildly ambitious world of medieval alchemists. Forget Harry Potter. Long before Hogwarts popped up, real-life philosophers were furiously scribbling in candlelit labs, obsessed with the ultimate power-up, the Philosopher's Stone. This wasn't just a fancy paperweight. Legend had it, the stone could transform rusty old lead into shiny gold, catapulting you from peasant to billionaire faster than you could say abracadabra. But wait, there's more. The stone promised eternal life, a 2-for-1 miracle deal sure to keep you and your ever-expanding gold vault around forever. Legends swirled around its power, fueling lifetimes of experiments, and probably testing the patience of spouses, as alchemists blended proto-science with daydreams and a generous splash of magical thinking. In reality, all they really produced was a mountain of failed experiments and just enough wishful thinking to launch a fantasy novel franchise. If alchemists had succeeded, we'd have immortal landlords and homes literally turning into gold. Alas, the Philosopher's Stone remains as fictional as a rent-free apartment. Just as the Philosopher's Stone promised immortality through transformation, the elixir of life was believed to grant eternal life through a special potion. Imagine slipping a sip of immortality into your morning coffee. Bye-bye deadlines, hello eternal brunch. If Keith Richards looks like he's cheating Father Time, just wait until he gets his hands on the real elixir of life, should it ever show up. From ancient China to old Europe, legends raved about a potion that wouldn't just keep your skin supple, but would pack your social calendar until, well, forever. Emperors and alchemists got straight to work, mixing gold dust, mercury, and, because who needs functioning organs, sometimes a pinch of crushed jade. Spoiler alert, most of these immortal brews yielded more legendary bathroom marathons than everlasting youth. Archaeologists have dug up plenty of weird vials, but zero evidence of anyone guzzling them and still roaming the earth, unless they're just exceptionally good at hide-and-seek. So immortality? Still not stocked at your local pharmacy. Yet from Silicon Valley's cryo chambers to your kombucha-loving cousin's fridge, the dream of a forever sip remains alive, if not exactly eternal. While the elixir aimed at eternal life, alchemists also sought tangible transformations, like turning base metals into gold. Picture a medieval alchemist, hunched over a bubbling cauldron, declaring with unshakable confidence, "Gold incoming." Meanwhile, villagers line up with buckets full of scrap metal and sparkling dreams of instant bling. This was the era's greatest myth. Follow the secret recipe, equal parts lead, batwing, and a generous dash of wishful thinking, and voila, junk turns to treasure. In reality, alchemy was less hard science, more fever dream, part wild experiment, part cryptic symbol soup. Basically chemistry class crashing an interpretive dance. The legendary quest to turn lead into gold, chrysopoeia, was the ultimate life goal, right up there with chasing eternal youth or finding a house-cleaning dragon. Sure, alchemists invented clever techniques, but none cracked the atomic code that makes gold. Well, gold. That kind of magic requires nuclear reactions. A bit tricky when all you've got are candles and a pointy hat. If medieval gold-making had actually worked, Europe wouldn't look like Game of Thrones, more like Pimp My Castle. The quest to turn lead into gold traces back to roots in ancient mystical traditions, notably among Egyptian priests. Picture ancient Egyptian priests not just summoning mummies, but brewing potions in secret labs, convinced they held the cosmic cheat codes. Popular myth casts these priests as proto-wizards, black-robed professors in a Nile-side Hogwarts faculty meeting. Cloaked in ritual and secrecy, they inspired enough awe and paranoia to make even a suspicious pharaoh raise an eyebrow, and maybe a sphinx. Their recipes for turning metals into gold were less Betty Crocker, more Breaking Bad Nile edition. Just swap crystal vials for scarabs. But let's add a pinch of reality. Most of this alchemical knowledge fizzles out better as poetry than chemistry. Egyptians cared far more about transforming souls than lead. Spiritual symbolism took center stage. Sure, priests dabbled in chemistry for embalming, cosmetics, and dyes. Eyeliner game, 10-10. But secret sci-fi labs? Nope, just ancient hype with a touch of smoke and mirrors. Greco-Roman writers later sprinkled extra magic dust, Think less James Bond with hieroglyphics, more community college chemistry with ankh necklaces. Forget philosopher's stones. Egypt's truly mystical feat was this: keeping cats entertained for thousands of years. Now that's real magic. These mystical origins contributed to the popular image of alchemists as cloaked wizards wielding staffs. Picture an alchemist: flowing robe, pointy hat, and a beard that's seen more chemicals than a lab drain on a Monday morning. Pop culture casts them as wizards in residence, casting spells, doodling runes, while cauldrons bubble and cats glare like tiny, judgmental professors. Basically Hogwarts, with a distinct lack of showers. But let's clear the smoke and mirrors. Most alchemists were earnest scholars, as buried in dusty manuscripts as in dubious glassware. Monks, physicians, smiths, and even a handful of women, sans wizard hats, stoically toiling away in plain old tunics. Forget robes sprinkled with stars. The real uniform sported practical sleeves, copious ink stains, and a deeply ingrained mistrust of fire. No glowing staffs here. Their mightiest tools were humble mortar and pestle. If anything got transformed, it was their workspace, into utter chaos. Their signature trick? Turning lead into disappointment. Alchemy meant as much paperwork as potions, and those cats? Perpetually dodging accidental black powder showers. But despite the mess and mayhem, these muddled mortals laid the foundation of chemistry, blurring the line between science and sorcery, one inky, impatient stroke at a time. Their secretive and magical reputation was sometimes reinforced by the spectacular explosions in their laboratories. Picture a medieval lab not buzzing with genius breakthroughs, but booming with actual explosions, alchemists ducking as their golden dreams go up in smoke. If you're picturing Hogwarts meets a fireworks factory, you're only half right. These labs were basically the original chemistry classrooms, minus the safety goggles and, sadly, any hope of insurance. There's a popular myth that alchemists' dens were daily disaster zones, with eyebrows and dignity vaporized by rogue potions. Sure, accidents happened, especially when someone got cozy with nitric acid, but most alchemists were thoughtful, methodical folks, more measured than mad. The legends of non-stop mayhem probably snowballed from a few infamous blunders, plus medieval gossip, the original masters of tall tales. Equipment was precious and costly. Blowing it up wasn't exactly a career boost. Their hefty lab manuals are packed with safety tips that, miraculously, saved more than a few hairlines. Still, the occasional oops did earn them a rep for pyrotechnic panache. If every lab truly exploded, medieval towns would have needed punch cards at the stone masons. Buy 10 walls, get your 11th free. Beyond the dramatic experiments, alchemical texts held cryptic secrets meant only for the initiated. Crack open any musty alchemical tome, and it's like stepping into an escape room designed by that cryptic cousin who only shows up at family reunions, and always with extra riddles. Medieval alchemical writings are notoriously dense. Forget IKEA instructions, at least those come with helpful stick figures. Alchemists coded every page in coded jargon and mysterious runes, burying their recipes behind allegories as tangled as a Shakespearean sourdough starter. In Pig Latin, naturally. Why all the secrecy? Some say it was to keep precious knowledge out of the wrong hands. Others suspect alchemists just wanted to flex their poetry muscles, or, let's be honest, confuse their apprentices. Certain manuscripts practically dare you to decode them, as if the secret to eternal gold were clearly hidden in metaphors about peacocks and philosophical eggs. Only insiders, or those armed with an endless supply of patience and Latin proficiency, stood a chance. This exclusivity sparked legends of chosen alchemists wielding magical wisdom. Reality check. Sometimes gold literally just meant gold. Even modern scholars, equipped with glossaries and enough skepticism to rival a cat near a bath, still get lost, wondering if half these texts were simply medieval reminders to wash their hands more often. These exclusive secrets also fed into misconceptions, such as alchemy being a male-only pursuit. Think alchemy was just a medieval boys' club? Think again. There was more to this mysterious science than bearded men brewing potions in shady basements. Sure, flip through history books, and you'll mostly find elderly men in robes, squinting at bubbling flasks, while women are nowhere to be seen, unless you count the occasional worried damsel lurking in the corner. The legend goes that alchemy was guarded tighter than a dragon's hoard, locking ladies out of labs and far from any cauldron. But if alchemy was boys only, someone forgot to tell the women. Enter Maria the Jewess, whose inventions, like the Bain Marie, that's a double boiler, and yes, modern chefs still thank her, were as essential to alchemy as the quest for gold itself. Not only did some Islamic texts give a nod to female practitioners, but a handful of women even ran their own workshops. Take that, medieval HR policies. So, while much of their work stayed under wraps, these ingenious women still managed to transmute lead and society's restrictions into golden legacies. Turns out the real secret ingredient wasn't mercury, but sheer persistence. Besides gender myths, alchemy was often misunderstood as being identical to astrology. Ever heard someone say alchemy and astrology were twins, separated at birth? Well, put down that astrolabe. Things are about to get delightfully tangled. Lots of folks like to mash the two together, imagining mystical peanut butter and jelly. Spoiler alert, they're more like peanut butter and glitter. Alchemy was fixated on transformations, turning lead into gold, chasing immortality, or at least conjuring enough silver to cover that never-ending lab rent. Astrology, on the other skyward hand, read the stars like a cosmic weather app, predicting your future, nailing your quirks, and cautioning your big toe against Tuesday's furniture ambush. Sure, both loved cryptic diagrams, juicy symbolism, and furious Latin note-taking. And yes, some alchemists peeked at planetary charts before mixing potions, because who wants Saturn ruining their chemical souffle? But alchemy chased material magic. Astrology? Pure cosmic choreography. Confusing them is like mixing up a weather forecast with a bread recipe. Both deal with timing, but only one's got a shot at actually rising. However, alchemy's mystical associations even fueled darker legends, like turning people into gold. Imagine waking up one morning to find your neighbor has turned you into a ridiculously shiny coffee table centerpiece. Talk about having a golden personality. Literally. Back in the day, alchemists were rumored to possess the mystical knack for transmuting not just lead into gold, but humans too. Medieval gossipers loved to warn, spill your neighbor's secrets, and you might just wake up as a candelabra, or worse, an exquisitely detailed bronze dog. These tales thrived on paranoia, fueled by whispers of mad magicians tinkering in smoky basements, mixing just the right pinch of sleight of hand with pure pseudoscience. In truth, the only thing alchemists reliably transformed was their own stomach lining after inhaling those mysterious fumes. Zero evidence suggests anyone ever morphed into precious metal, just a bunch of disappointed gold diggers and some very angry mobs with torches. So yes, becoming rich overnight does have its downsides, especially when you end up 100% non-refundable. But don't worry, your modern chemistry set won't transmogrify your neighbors. At worst, the only transformation you'll get is a permanent blue stain on your favorite shirt. Now, who's up for coffee? Despite such myths, many alchemists were actually early scientists exploring natural phenomena. Imagine if your local barista swore that turning coffee into gold was just a matter of time, and the right secret password. Welcome to the world of alchemy, where every medieval chemist juggled wild hunches, questionable chemical hoards, and zero sense of a deadline. The popular myth paints alchemists as gullible chumps on a fool's gold chase, Renaissance-era get-rich-quick schemers decked out in bathrobes that were just a bit fancier. But here's the modern roast. Alchemists were the OG science pioneers. They deserve credit for lab staples like distillation, crystallization, and the smart rule of thumb: never light open flames near mystery liquids. Their resume? Tracking down the philosopher's stone, hunting for instant immortality, and possibly searching for magical cures to bad hair days. Where their science ended and their philosophy or spiritual mumbo-jumbo began, tough to tell. It was like a Renaissance Venn diagram after too many espressos. In chasing gold, they laid the groundwork for modern chemistry and the world's first industrial hazardous waste. If coffee shops ran like alchemy labs, we'd be sipping espresso that turns into silver and dodging a whole lot more caution, explosion hazard signs. Their scientific pursuits included seeking universal remedies, known as panaceas, for all ailments. Imagine a world where one magical potion could cure your cold, mend your heartbreak, and banish your existential dread. Welcome to the alchemical daydream. Enter the panacea, that legendary one-glug wonder hawked by medieval influencers long before TikTok made going viral a thing. These alchemists weren't content with just curing one ailment. They chased the holy trinity of cosmic shortcuts: the panacea, the philosopher's stone, the fountain of youth. Why bother with pesky things like trial, error, or hygiene when a mystery elixir could allegedly do it all? Spoiler alert: beyond overactive imaginations and sketchy manuscripts, panaceas were mostly just marketing miracles and bottled-up hope. Most miracle cures were more likely to turn your insides into a toxic stew, packed with mercury, lead, or, if you were lucky, absolutely nothing. The only thing these potions reliably cured was an overabundance of gullible gold coins. Fast forward to today, and every superfood, detox tea, or natural supplement would feel right at home at a medieval market stall, because shortcuts may be eternal, but disappointment always stays in stock. Yet the pursuit of gold sometimes led to flooding markets with counterfeit precious metals. Imagine strolling through a medieval market and being handed a golden apple that, by lunchtime, morphs back into a potato. Tempting, until you realize this is pure Grimm's fairy tale, not fiscal policy. There's a crusty old legend that these markets brimmed with counterfeit gold, thanks to a local squad of rogue alchemists. Picture sorcerers cranking out fake doubloons like some proto-Vegas casino on a losing streak. Here's the reality check. Medieval alchemy was less about minting gold and more about chasing mystical truths and occasionally turning the family shed into a fireworks display. Actual gold production? About as successful as finding an honest man in a snake pit, aka the world's slowest get-rich-quick scheme. Yes, counterfeit coins circulated, but those were hammered out by sly forgers, not starry-robed scholars. The payoff for fakes? Less Hogwarts wizardry, more enjoy the view from the gallows, mate. Medieval buyers weren't born yesterday either. They eyed clipped coins and shoddy paint jobs with hawk-like suspicion, because most so-called gold was about as genuine as a reality TV romance. If alchemists could really whip up gold, ye olde Gucci would have been mobbed daily. These controversies were often shrouded by the alchemists' involvement in secretive societies, safeguarding their knowledge. Picture every alchemist holed up in a shadowy lair, plotting world domination while stroking their philosopher's stones. Popular imagination decks them out in velvet robes, gathering at midnight to mutter cryptic Latin and swap coded notes under flickering candlelight. The ultimate ancient MI6, if James Bond swapped gadgets for glass flasks and added a whiff of incense. The myth? Alchemy was cloak and dagger stuff, secret brotherhoods sworn to guard recipes for eternal life, or at least really fizzy drinks. Fact check. Most alchemists were about as secret as a neighborhood book club. Many published thick treatises, sometimes with footnotes, and openly nattered about their gold-making dreams in university lectures. Sure, a pinch was kept private, but not from deadly danger, more to hide the fact that half their elixirs tasted like burnt disappointment. In the end, their secret societies resembled awkward study groups desperately hunting for better ventilation. The only secrets at stake? Who swiped whose lunch? So let's thank these curious tinkerers, not for shadowy conspiracies, but for brave scribbles in illegible notes, sparking chemistry without any dramatic arrests. After all, any society is secret if nobody can read your handwriting. Among their mystical concepts was the symbolic third eye, often interpreted as the pineal gland. Forget Instagram astrology. The original alchemists weren't obsessed with your pineal gland. Despite the mimetic Armageddon of opening the third eye, medieval and Renaissance alchemy was less about decoding your brainstem's secrets and more about turning lead into gold, or at least justifying a pricey collection of glassware. If you'd wandered into a 16th century alchemist's lab babbling about your gland pinealis, you'd likely get nothing but blank stares and maybe a pewter mug launched your way. Sure, authentic alchemical manuscripts toyed with transformation and inner enlightenment, but anatomical detours? That was anatomist's turf. Descartes famously fawned over the pineal gland, and that was decades after alchemy's golden age. Alchemists adored their metaphors: eyes, stars, peacocks. But nowhere did you hear "open your calcified gland, bro" in any language. Fast forward to today's New Age scene, where the pineal doubles as a mystical Wi-Fi router rather than sticking to its day job, pumping out melatonin. If the pineal really is the shortcut to enlightenment, someone please explain that to coffee. Because for now, it's still doing a better job as my third eye-opener. This blend of mysticism and experimentation made alchemy famous for its vibrant potions and dramatic reactions. Imagine a wizard's workspace, overflowing with rainbow-colored liquids bubbling ominously. Was this the true face of alchemy? Picture it, a bearded alchemist cackling as green smoke billows from beaker number 37. The public has long pictured alchemists as potions class taught by an unhinged chemistry teacher, one errant sneeze away from disaster. But let's deflate the cinematic myth. Real alchemy was more monkish than manic. Instead of fireworks and jaw-dropping flashes, think endless hours hunched over cryptic texts, sketching weird symbols, and muttering, at a stubborn, colorless lump that refused to change. Sure, once in a blue moon something fizzed or smoked, but those moments were less transmutation and more wait. Was that supposed to bubble? Actual alchemists chased philosophical transformations, not Instagrammable explosions. The average experiment? Way more simmer and wait than a Michael Bay blockbuster. A meditative crawl, not a pyrotechnic sprint. If flashy failures were the point, safety goggles might have been the real philosopher's stone. Inside alchemy's walls, the biggest drama was usually internal. Minds sparking with ideas, not labs bursting into literal fire.